Well, hello! I figured I'd make a new series of videos about fxhash in the lead up to the launch of the new version, and probably a bunch more videos afterwards too, because why not? In this video though, I'm going to go through the very easiest, simplest, most straightforward way of getting started of making a project for fxhash. Because in a matter of weeks, who knows how long, a few more weeks, fxhash version 2 will have a theorem integration, and that's got lots of artists very interested because fxhash offers a load of cool features which we'll cover in future videos, I think. And also it's an open platform, anyone can publish here. It has on-chain and off-chain publishing, and just overall a really neat platform. But because we'll have new artists to the platform coming over, and because each platform does things in slightly different ways, and because the documentation could be maybe a little confusing here, I'm going to cover a very simple way to get up and running. So let's get started with fxhash Untitled Series Episode 1, because I can't think of a good name which is going to suck for SEO. Hi. I'm Catt. I am a contemporary print artist and maths enthusiast. I'm normally working with pen plotters and drawing machines, and I apologise if you hear the pen plotter running in the background, well, over there. I say, and I didn't realise it was going to take about 6 hours to finish the plot. A little housekeeping at the top before we get on, because I'm in the middle of making pen plotter tutorial videos, which are coming soon, I promise. Weekly videos, I mean actually doing pen plotting, and a couple of upcoming NFT drops on fxhash, I thought I'd try to make these Untitled series of videos quick and easy to make. So this is the setup: desk, laptop, I've got my prompt cards, nice background, no fancy editing, we're just going to go for it. The idea is to keep this nice and short and simple. I will fail, obviously, because that's what I do. Also, in this video, I'm just showing you the files you need to upload and the upload process for a project. This video is not going to show you how to make art, how to create a canvas, and so on, things like that. This video is for artists who already know what they're doing and then just want to be able to do that thing on fxhash. This is also not about fx params or fx lens. I'll cover those in future videos. And if you have things you want me to cover, let me know in the comments below. Another great resource is Steve's Makerspace. That's another channel here on YouTube, which I'll link to, and that covers a lot of fxhash stuff. I'll put more links below, including one to an empty shell project that I use that's got a bit more going on than I'll show in this video. And with all that out of the way, let's go through the process of uploading a project. I am old school. I come from a time where you would make web pages and also JavaScript code in a simple text editor, and then you FTP those files up to the server. And although I now obviously use more modern methods, I still believe you ought to be able to do those things the old-fashioned way, just simply editing text. So when I see a traditional artist go, I want to get into creating art with code, their priorities are this. Like, first, you stay creative and have in mind the art they want to create. The second is they need to learn how to code to actually make that art. And then finally, third, they can choose to learn, if they want, modern web development and everything that goes along with that, but that shouldn't be a requirement. With that in mind, first we're going to create a new projects folder down here. My first project. There we go. And then in fxhash, we're going to click on the docs link here, the project creations, and then we're going to scroll down to the fxhash boilerplate. This is important. The fxhash team have gone to huge efforts to create a variety of tools, development kit, lots of modern best practice web dev stuff and so on, which we're going to completely ignore except one thing that we'll come back to. So click on this thing here that doesn't look like a link but actually is a link, or not this thing up here that does look like a link but actually isn't. And you want two things from here. First, click the fxhash.js file, and then this down arrow here, and that'll download the file. Click index.html, and then we're going to download that too. Go to your file system and ignore these over 200 folders in my downloads folder, all called sort, and we're going to grab fxhash and index.html and copy them into my first project. And that is the last time we'll ever look at this fxhash.js file. We're never going to touch it again. We're never going to open it. We're never going to read it. We don't need to worry about it at all. The only time we do is if we need to grab the latest version, which I'll show in a tick. Then open up your text editor. I use Visual Source Code. and then we're going to open that folder. And then let's make this a little bit bigger so you can see. Now then, I'm going to get rid of this line and this line here and put in hello world. And now typically a developer would sort of do p5.js here like this, or they might have main or bundle or index, whatever they normally do. Some of them also might put a canvas in here, which I'm going to do. So what's that fxhash.js script doing for you? Well, if we just make this bigger, it gives you a whole bunch of goodies you can play with. And we're only going to be concerned about 4 of those, and they all hang off this $fx object thing. So the first one is that there's a unique hash that it gives you, which when someone mints one of your artworks, they get given that hash. The hash drives the random number feature, which is rand. So that gives you random numbers. And this is the random you should use, not any maths.random or any other random number shenanigans. Let's just reload this. So the third thing you have access to is the iteration, which tells you the mint number. So fxhash starts at mint number 1. Other platforms start at 0. So that's a fun thing about this. And you'd use the iteration number if you want mints to match up like 1, 2, 3, 4, or you want to build like a bigger design out of all the mints. You have access to it here. However, when you're developing your code, that will default to 1. And obviously you want to test different things. So you could set it randomly in code, or you can just add fx iteration onto the URL. And then that will force it to be whatever number you want. And while we're here, you can also do ampersand fxhash, and you can set a hash value as well, which is super handy if you found an error in one of the mints while you're doing all your testing. You can set the fxhash and keep trying to run the same code over and again to work out what's wrong. But you know that anyway, because you're great. Which brings me on to the fourth and final one, which is fx preview, which is a way of telling fxhash when you want it to take the thumbnail that's going to be used for your mint. So if your code just does like a whole bunch of drawing code, you pop it at the end there. If there's a number of steps, so it has to like do lots of things and calculations, so that takes time. Once it finishes its final step, you'll do the fx preview there. If you've got an animation, so there isn't really a good point to like take that snapshot, you can just tell it how long, like 30 seconds or 40 seconds. That happens in the uploading process, and I'll show you that in a little bit. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make some very, very bad code. So just bear with me a second. Right, done. Behold my horrific project, but it does have the core of what I need to show you for the next thing and uploading. So obviously you shouldn't do the canvas sizing and creation how I've done it here at all, but these are the 3 elements I want to show you. We are using fxhash rand instead of the normal maths rand to do our randomness, so that's important. We're using fx iteration here to work out how many dots there's going to be. So there's going to be 1 circle on the first mint, 2 circles on the second mint, and so on. And then finally down here, we've got that fx preview, which tells it when to take that snapshot. So here, if I change that iteration to 2, we're going to have 2 dots. If I change it to 40, we're going to have 40 dots. My beautiful, beautiful project. And that's it. That's everything you need to have to create a project, this index file and the fxhash.js. So we'll now do the upload process. The first thing to notice though is that when you include your file like this, it needs to have that / at the start. So ideally not this. This might work, but you're much better off doing /. And if you have a folder like scripts, you would then do it like that. And we're all good. So there we go. Okay, let's upload this. So now we're going to upload this project fxhash. It's very straightforward. Let me walk you through that. We're going to go over here. Something to note, don't zip your project folder from here. Go into it, and then you want to be zipping the stuff from here. So your index is in the root. You're not like creating a folder that has the stuff in. So we're going to compress this, call it my project. And then we're going to go over to fxhash and go to mint generative token. So I've carefully checked my zip file, time to mint. So who authored it? Just me. If you do a collaboration, you can put other people in here. This is just me. Next to shiny, you can have this on chain here. When ETH chain comes out, you'll also be picking which chain to use, Tezos or ETH, or whether you want it on IPFS or if you want it on chain. You'll have all those options. We're going to go for IPFS here, and then we drop our zip. Now I'm just going to show you something here because I have a project, 78 RPM, that has an older fxhash. file in. If I try to upload this, and my network here is pretty slow, so this might take a while. We found the fx snippet in the JavaScript file, but it differs from the most up-to-date version. So at that point, you would go back to the boilerplate, and then you'll download whatever the latest version of fxhash.js is there. So I thought I'd show you that. So we're going to come back to here. I'm going to go back. Let's drop our actual project on there. Next step, drop our zip. So if everything goes to plan and we're using the latest version of fxhash.js, you'll arrive here. So this bit is where you're checking your files and you're testing. So we're just going to put the iteration up to 23, those dots. So when you click the new hash button, your art should be different each time. Obviously different art for different hashes. But then if we retry with the same hash, your art should stay the same for that hash, which is good. We're going to ignore the current minter for the moment. So yep, we're going to keep those settings. Yes, we're going to go on. So trigger, this is where the preview comes in. So I say I want to use the fx preview, and I have a canvas that I gave it the ID of target. Whoops. So if we look in the code here, you can see here's my canvas and ID. So it's going to take a snapshot from that. Let me just test it. Perfect. If you're not using a canvas, say you're using SVG, or you've just got a HTML page or something in there, you can just capture the whole viewport, and that will just take the snapshot from there. And if you're doing an animation, then you could do a fixed delay of, say, we're happy after like 90 seconds. After a minute and a half, then we're going to capture it, and we're going to test it here. I'm not going to do that. I'm happy with my, there we go, all good. And I'm going to go on to the next step. And then this is where it tests that the thumbnail matches your actual working code. So here we go. Generative artwork on the left, the preview image on the right. They both look the same to me, so that's pretty good. So I'm happy with that. Okay, I can have the number of editions, 23 of them, fixed price, 23, or I can have a Dutch auction. So that's very straightforward. You can schedule your opening here. So calendar, normal type of stuff. Whatever. It's a good idea, I think, to set it a few days in advance, because then it can sit on the fxhash incoming feed and people can see it and play with it before it actually goes live. So that's a good idea. Primary splits here for donations. If you wanted to have someone else, let's take Steve. Steve's marketplace. I could say, oh, you've taught me so much. I'm going to give you 10% of the income, so you can add new people there. So if you wanted to add, let's say, me, then you would pick me like this, but I am me, because I'm like that. Anyway, 10% royalties. You can do royalty splits, so if you want to have it half and half with whoever minted it and you would do that here. Reserves, we won't go into reserves now, but this is where you would add a mint pass or reserve list. That's a future type of thing. And then, this is quite important, enable it down here. Even if you do a scheduled thing, say I schedule it for next week, but I don't switch this on, it's just going to be disabled, and then when the launch time comes, it'll still be disabled, which won't help anything. So let's do that. Yep, we're all good. Next step. This is the variations page. It allows people to see, like, or try variations basically. So this is the same as before. So you can either just let people keep spamming that, or you can say, I'm going to have a list of hashes that I've approved. So I could have 14 or something that I want people to be able to see. And then post mint. I know some people like to turn this off after post mint. So once the project is finished, there's never going to be any more generated. I tend to leave it on. That's up to you. And then this is where you name it, my first project. You put a description in here, but there's a reason why there's two boxes here. You could say press S to save. And then once it's actually minted, you could have another thing in here that says press P to party. That allows you to add a little bit more information to a mint as opposed to the main description of the whole project. Most people don't do that. Tags go here, and then labels depending on what it is. If it's flashing, image composition, interactive, those type of things. So we go on to our final preview. Here's my project, 23 minted, opens in 3 days. Variations over here so people can see what's going to go on. And then if I hit publish project, it's going to go live. I'm not going to do that now. But now we've been through the process of downloading the files we need, creating a bit of code, uploading to fxhash, choosing our chain, whether it's on-chain, off-chain, all of that type of stuff. Pretty straightforward. Of course, if you want to use more advanced things like parameters or minting addresses, seeds, all that good stuff that you can do, it gets a little bit more complicated and you do start having to use the web dev tools. But don't feel stressed or overwhelmed that they're kind of hiding in the shadows, just waiting to get you, because lots of successful artists don't use params or seeds or any of that type of stuff at all. And you can go a really long way before you have to start spinning up Node or something like that. You can just do editing those files and you'll be good. Anyway, we'll cover that in the future, but I do think we'll have a couple more sort of videos about general structure before we move on to those more complicated topics, as well as keeping on top of the new things that they add to fxhash as they add them. For some reason, I've got a kind of reputation for making things with those new features pretty soon after they're released, so I guess I'll be making videos about them as well. And I think that was it for episode 1. That was kind of fun, I think, wasn't it? I don't think they'll all be like this. Some will be shorter, some will be longer and more in-depth. I just fancy trying to do something that's more formal and weekly, but hopefully easy enough that I can get through it in most weeks. I might miss some weeks. And I should probably add a little news section here at the end, but I don't think there's any news, really. We'll work on the format of this a little bit. Let's do some shout-outs. Podcast first. Listening to Waiting to be Signed is a good way to keep up with fxhash in your ear. Ken's Arbitrarily Deterministic is another great podcast for listening to artists talk about their work, and Steve's Makerspace is a great place on YouTube, which I'll link to, which you'll learn more about using fxhash and programming and things like that. I should probably end with a call to action. Be excellent to each other. Bye.